The courtroom in the small Texas town of Oakwood smelled like old wood polish, stale coffee, and the faint metallic tang of fear. It was the kind of place where the American flag hung a little crooked behind the bench, where the air conditioning rattled like it was on its last legs, and where everybody knew everybody's business. Until the night George Harlan ended up dead in his own driveway with a wrench buried in his skull. The gallery was packed. Farmers in their Sunday shirts sat shoulder to shoulder with retirees who'd driven in from the trailer park. Reporters from Dallas and Houston scribbled on legal pads, their phones silenced but their eyes hungry. Up front, 12 jurors, good, God-fearing Texans who'd already made up their minds, watched the defendant like he was something that had crawled out from under a rock. Tom Riley sat at the defense table in a cheap navy suit 2 sizes too big. His wrists were cuffed, his shoulders slumped. At 42, he looked 10 years older, the grease still visible under his fingernails, no matter how hard the public defender had scrubbed them. Tom had fixed every broken-down pickup in Oakwood for 20 years. He'd coached Little League. He'd buried his wife after cancer took her, then raised their only child alone. None of that mattered now. The district attorney had painted him as a violent deadbeat, who'd finally snapped over a late rent check. Members of the jury, Ada Laura Benson was saying, her voice smooth as bourbon. The evidence is overwhelming. Fingerprints on the murder weapon, blood on the defendant's boots, a history of heated arguments with the victim. This wasn't an accident. This was cold-blooded murder. Defense attorney Michael Grant rose to object for the 100th time. But Judge Robert Harlan, 68, white hair like a lion's mane, face carved from East Texas granite, lifted one heavy hand. "Save it for closing, Mr. Grant. We're almost done here." The gavel hovered. 1 more hour and the jury would retire. 1 more hour, and Tom Riley would probably never see the outside of a prison again. That was the exact moment the heavy oak doors at the back of the courtroom exploded open with a bang that made every head swivel. A little girl stood there in the aisle. She was 15 years old, maybe 17, wearing a yellow sundress that had seen better days and white sneakers with pink laces. Her dark hair was in 2 messy braids, and her eyes, big brown and terrified, locked straight onto the judge. In her small hands, she clutched a bright pink iPad, the kind with a cracked screen protector covered in cartoon stickers. Bailiff Hank Morales stepped forward, hand on his belt. "Ma'am, miss, you can't be in here." But the girl didn't stop. She marched down the center aisle like a tiny soldier, chin up, even though her knees were shaking so hard you could see it from the back row. The courtroom held its collective breath. When she reached the rail separating the gallery from the well of the court, she planted her feet and spoke in a voice that somehow carried to the rafters. "That man is innocent." A ripple went through the room. Someone gasped. A reporter dropped his pen. Judge Harlan's gavel froze midair. His bushy eyebrows shot up. "Young lady, this is a court of law. You need to—" "My name is Emma Riley," she said louder now, voice cracking only once. "And that's my daddy." She pointed straight at Tom, whose face had gone white as drywall. Tears were already streaming down his cheeks. "And he didn't kill Mr. Harlan. I know who did. And I can prove it." Ada Benson laughed, a short disbelieving bark. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The child is clearly distraught. We should have her removed." But Judge Harlan didn't move. He stared at the little girl the way a man stares at a ghost he half expected. Something in her face, maybe the same stubborn set of the jaw her father had, made him lower the gavel slowly. "Everybody stay seated," he rumbled. "Bailiff, do not touch her. Young lady, Emma, come forward. But you better have something real to show this court, because interrupting a murder trial is no small thing." Emma walked past the rail, sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. She stopped right in front of the bench, craning her neck up at the judge like she was looking at a very tall oak tree. Then she lifted the iPad with both hands. "I recorded it," she said. "The night it happened. I was scared, so I hid under my bed with my iPad. Daddy gave it to me for my birthday, so I could make videos of my dance routines. But that night I pressed record because I heard yelling, and then I saw. The silence was so complete you could hear the ceiling fan wobbling overhead." Judge Harlan leaned forward. "You're telling me you have video of the murder?" Emma nodded so hard her braids whipped. "Not just the murder. The whole thing. And it's not Daddy." Michael Grant was on his feet now, eyes wide. "Your Honor, I move for an immediate recess and to admit this evidence under Rule 201, newly discovered exculpatory material." Ada Benson sputtered. "Objection. This is theater. The child wasn't even listed as a witness. She's been sequestered with her grandmother this whole time. Emma looked straight at the prosecutor, eyes blazing. I was scared you'd make me talk about the blood. But I'm not scared anymore. Daddy's been in jail for 4 months. I want my daddy back. Judge Harlan rubbed his jaw, studying the girl for a long moment. Then he did something no one in that courtroom had ever seen him do in 32 years on the bench. He stood up. Court is in recess for 30 minutes. Bailiff, clear the gallery except for counsel. The defendant, the child, and her grandmother if she's here. We're going to look at this video in chambers. Right now. The next 27 minutes changed everything. They crowded into the judge's private office. Dark wood, Texas flag in the corner, a framed photo of Harlan's own grandkids on the desk. Emma sat in the big leather chair like it was a throne. Tom was uncuffed for the first time in months and knelt beside her, one big grease-stained hand on her knee. The judge, the 2 attorneys, the court reporter, and the bailiff all leaned in as Emma unlocked the iPad with her. Birthday, 609. I never showed anybody, she whispered. The man on the video said if I told, he'd come back for me too. But then, I heard the prosecutor lady say, my daddy was gonna get the needle, so I had to. She pressed play. The video was shaky at first, filmed from under a bed, dust bunnies and a lost sock in the foreground. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. on the night of the murder. You could hear Tom's voice in the background, calm at first, then rising. George, I told you I'd have the rent by Friday. My truck broke down again. I'm good for it, man. Then another voice, deeper, meaner. A voice every person in that office recognized instantly. It belonged to Dale Whitaker, not some stranger. Dale Whitaker, the respected owner of Whitaker Development. The man who'd bought half the land around Oakwood. The guy who sat on the school board and waved at parades. The man whose company had been trying to force George Harlan to sell his rental properties for months. The camera angle shifted as Emma crawled forward. You could see the driveway through the half-open window blinds. George Harlan stood under the security light, arguing with Dale. Tom was trying to step between them. Then Dale pulled something from his jacket, a silver wrench he'd clearly brought with him. You think you can keep holding out on me, old man? I need that land. My investors are breathing down my neck. This ends tonight. The struggle was brutal but quick. George fought back. Tom tried to grab the wrench. Dale swung wild. The crack when it connected with George's skull made everyone in the judge's office flinch. Tom went down, trying to shield the older man. Dale stood over both of them, breathing hard. Then he did the worst thing of all. He walked straight to Tom's toolbox sitting on the tailgate of Tom's truck, wiped the wrench clean with a rag, and pressed it into Tom's unconscious hand. He smeared some of George's blood onto Tom's boots. Then he looked around, satisfied, and left. The video kept rolling. Emma's tiny voice whispered, "Daddy? Daddy, wake up!" until sirens wailed in the distance. When it ended, the room was dead quiet except for Tom's broken sob as he pulled his daughter into his arms. Judge Harlan sat back slowly. His face had gone the color of old paper. He looked at Ada Benson, who suddenly couldn't meet anyone's eyes. "Ms. Benson," he said, voice low and dangerous. "Did your office ever bother to check Dale Whitaker's alibi beyond his own secretary's word?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "Mr. Grant," the judge continued, "I want that video duplicated, time-stamped, and entered into evidence immediately. Bailiff, you will take 2 deputies and arrest Dale Whitaker at his home. Right now. No phone calls. No lawyers until he's in cuffs. And somebody get this little girl a Coke and a cheeseburger. She looks like she hasn't eaten in a week." He turned to Emma, who was still clinging to her father like he might disappear again. The judge's voice softened in a way no one had ever heard. "Miss Emma Riley, you are the bravest person who has ever stood in my courtroom. And I've been here a long time." Then the judge did something else no one expected. He reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a small wooden gavel he kept as a paperweight, the kind they gave to kids on. "Take your child to work day," and handed it to her. "You saved a man's life today. You saved your daddy. If you ever want to be a lawyer, or a judge, or anything else, you come see me. Doors always open." Emma took the little gavel with both hands like it was made of gold. For the first time in months, she smiled. The rest of the day moved like a whirlwind. Dale Whitaker was arrested at his McMansion on the hill, still wearing golf clothes, protesting loudly until the deputies showed him the video on a squad car laptop. His face went slack. He didn't even try to run. The jury was called back in. Judge Harlan played the video in open court. Every pixel, every horrifying second. Gasps turned to outrage. One juror actually stood up and applauded when it ended. The judge didn't bother banging the gavel. He just let them. "Mr. Riley," he said after the formal dismissal, "you are free to go. All charges dismissed with prejudice. The state of Texas owes you an apology, and I suspect a sizable civil suit is coming your way. But right now you take your daughter home." Tom stood on shaking legs. The cuffs had already been removed. He looked at his lawyer, at the judge, at the jury box full of people now wiping their eyes. Then he walked over, picked Emma up like she weighed nothing, and held her so tight the whole courtroom could hear her giggle. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" she asked, loud enough for the reporters to hear. "Baby girl, we can get the whole damn dairy section." The media storm hit Oakwood like a Texas tornado. CNN, Fox, every local station. Little girl saves daddy with secret video trended for 3 straight days. Emma did one interview, only one, sitting on her front porch steps, with her father's arm around her and a big bowl of Bluebell, vanilla in her lap. "I just didn't want my daddy to miss my 9th birthday," she told the nice lady from NBC. "He always makes the best pancakes with chocolate chips." Tom Riley never went back to being just a mechanic. Whitaker Development settled out of court for enough money that he bought the garage outright and started a scholarship fund for kids who lost parents to cancer. He coached Emma's softball team that spring. They won the county championship. The trophy still sits on the mantel next to the little wooden gavel Judge Harlan gave her. Years later, when Emma was 26 and finishing law school at the University of Texas, she came back to Oakwood for the 4th of July parade. The whole town turned out. Fire trucks, marching bands, veterans in wheelchairs waving flags. Emma rode on the float for local heroes. At the end of Main Street, Judge Harlan, now retired, white hair thinner, but back still straight, stood on the courthouse steps waiting for her. He held out a real judge's gavel this time, engraved with her name. "You still got that paperweight I gave you?" he asked, eyes twinkling. "Never let it out of my sight," Emma said. He nodded, satisfied. "Good, because the world needs more people who run toward the fight instead of away from it, even if they're only 8 years old and wearing pink sneakers." Emma hugged the old judge tight. Behind her, Tom Riley, gray at the temples now but still the strongest, man she knew, watched with tears in his eyes again. Not sad ones this time, proud ones. That night they sat on the same front porch where she'd given her interview years earlier. Fireworks bloomed over the Texas sky, red, white, and blue explosions that lit up the faces of father and daughter. "You know," Tom said quietly, squeezing her hand, "I used to think the worst night of my life was the night George died. But really, it was the night you saved me. My brave little girl." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, the way she had when she was small. "Daddy," she whispered, "I wasn't brave. I was just tired of being scared. And I knew you'd do the same for me." Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Crickets sang. The American flag on their porch fluttered in the warm breeze. And in a small Texas courtroom that still smelled of wood polish and possibility, a little girl's voice still echoed, "That man is innocent." She had been right.